Hello.
Hi, how's it going? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, yeah, I can hear you. I just went back to mute.
Okay. It's a lot of AI note takers.
All right, welcome to the January 13th AnonCreds Working Group meeting, first one of the new year. Big thing to go over is the AnonCreds BBS PR. I've got questions, so I wanted to have Mike talk it over and figure out next steps with it. As well, Victor's been working on the revocation manager, and so and has questions, so that might turn into a Mike and Victor code discussion, but we'll see how that goes. We are recording the message, and I'll post the recording right after the meeting. A reminder, this is a Linux Foundation decentralized, or a Linux Foundation meeting, so the antitrust policy of the Linux Foundation is in effect. It's also an LF Decentralized Trust meeting, and the Code of Conduct is in effect. Both of those are linked into the agenda. I suppose I should put the agenda into the chat just in case anyone wants to see it. Let me just close that. Right, and that I'll keep aside. Okay, that's where the agenda is. Feel free to add yourself. If anyone wants to introduce themselves, feel free. And add any topics to the agenda if you want to talk about something that's not on the agenda. All right. So just before the holidays, Mike submitted PR number 39, which I want to talk about with Mike. So 74 files, of which many are relatively small.
I can share my screen and do it if that's helpful.
Probably better. So let me go over. Wow, did I lose the? Yeah, it jumped away. So the PR adds swappable signature scheme. So instead of it being just PS signatures, it added the ability to swap between them. It added a BBS implementation and had test updates. I think that's all, Mike. Is there anything else in it?
Nope, that was it.
Okay.
So it's basically pick your signature and show that either one works. That's all I did in the PR.
Okay, so you go ahead, I'll unshare my screen and you go ahead and share your screen, and then we'll go over questions. I've got a bunch.
As expected. So, all right. So originally when we submitted a AnonCreds v2 repo, there's this folder called Nox. This is where I put all of the cryptography itself to handle the signatures. That's where the PS signature is. And eventually I wanted to move this to Agora, just to have been so swamped. So just to keep it
wondering about that.
Just to keep it consistent, you'll see BBS is exactly the same file names, and basically the same methods, but specific to that signature itself. So in this, BBS implementation follows the IRTF draft that is out there.
Okay.
So there are a few traits. I'm trying to see where those are actually at. Yeah, okay. So these are where kind of like pick your signature. As long as they implement these traits, then it should just be pluggable. Which is why you kind of see this, like you'll see that this implements a blind signature and how BBS does it. And then there's other traits like the blind signature context, which is for, hey, if we're going to do blind signing, we need to do a proof that you actually know the values that are being signed and you just copy those from anywhere else. For BBS specifically, if you look at the IRTF draft, it talks about doing generators, what they call an API ID. This is literally as close to the draft spec as you can get. I tried to make it so that if you were reading the math in the spec, this would look just like it. And you can follow what it does to do the expansion for the message generators. The rest of these are kind of self-explanatory, like this is for the secret key. And here's kind of the updated ePrint of the math. So basically what happened is IRTF draft was in progress, and then some cryptographers came along and said, we can actually simplify this from BBS plus to just BBS. And so that is that document right there. So that is where I did the math for most of this, if it wasn't in the IRTF draft. So let me put it this way. I use the IRTF draft where applicable, but if the ePrint had an updated algorithm that the IRTF draft didn't necessarily account for, then I use that one instead. There wasn't really that much of a difference, but I just wanted to make it clear which one took priority.
Okay.
So this is most.
And just to be clear to my other questions, and you've answered this by showing me but all of the features that are in AnonCreds V2 are supported in the BBS implementation.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Exactly. Yep. That's all. That was the point.
Oh, wait, one question.
Yeah.
Revocation, is it impacted by the fact that you're using BBS, or is it independent?
It's independent.
It's independent. That's what I thought. Okay.
Yep,
So
you just say which signature you're using, but revocation still works with either one.
Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. So the BBS, so underlying the revocation is a signature scheme, and it's either BBS or PS.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So
Okay.
if you go look at flow, so here's the tests you can see, Stephen.
Yeah.
Before I just said give me the new issuer. Now I'm saying use the BBS scheme, but you'll notice everything else is exactly the same. Here's the revocation and all the stuff you're putting in the credential. Just expand it so you can see not much else changed. See here, I'm still doing revocation proofs, but it's using BBS instead of PS. But
instead of the hard coded, it's using the dynamic BBS.
Yep. See, it just says BBS. Now, if you look at some of the other tests, well, see, this one does BBS, but I did leave in some PS so you could see that they're swappable. So like here you can see, oh, here I'm going to use the PS scheme. Here's the issuer setup for PS. This one, this is just generic stuff that wasn't there before, so I had to add it to make the test work for PS. But this
to do this right, you should have created a whole set of tests for both.
Yeah, copy and paste, really. Which is pretty easy to do. There's a crate that will do that for you. That basically just says run it with this generic, run the same test, but with both. So, mostly I was just trying to get it in before the holidays and I got too busy.
I know. No, I know. I'm joking, but that what you're saying is you could have done that.
Yep. It doesn't matter which one you pick. So, so if you really want to compare and contrast with the IRTF.
Can I ask a question?
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry for interrupting. Yeah, this is my first time joining this session. So I am Mohammed Yıldız. I work at TÜBİTAK, and I'm interested in all that this stuff. I will keep it short. But here I also have been inspecting the IRTF drafts for a very long time, and I realized differences between the implementation and what you have done in the IRTF draft. So you mentioned also ePrint. So you say it's aligned with the ePrint, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
So probably I missed that. Where can I find that one? The ePrint one?
So I referenced it. Oh, I think it was in secret key. Here's the link. Here, I'll put this in the Zoom chat.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Now, and just to clarify, Mike, you said this ePrint takes priority over the IETF.
If they didn't integrate it yet, it's yes. Like I
Yeah,
said, there
the
wasn't
IETF
much of a difference. There wasn't much of a difference.
So the IETF only covers basically the signature and the selective disclosure.
Correct. Yeah.
And then there's been two new BBS drafts, one of which covers blind signatures and the other covers pseudonymous identifiers.
Yeah. So this incorporates those as well.
Okay. And where's the code for the pseudonymous identifiers? I see blind signatures there.
Yep, that's it.
It's that covers both?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And that's, I mean, in the IRTF draft, it talks about blind signatures.
Yeah.
And this ePrint actually says, well, you could technically avoid doing this and that, but I was like, I can't think of a way to not do it that way. And when they talked to Jan Kamenish, he just said, yeah, you could just leave it. It doesn't impact security. And like, he's like, in practice, I doubt anybody will just drop that proof. So I left it. So I kept it there. Okay. So, I mean, you can see the secret key is pretty simple. This is for blind signatures, proof of knowledge of signature, the public key. As you can see in the public key, I do what I call a compressed key, which is the one you're actually going to write to or publish somewhere. But then when I actually go to use it, this notation is according to the ePrint. They use a Y and a W. And I'm trying to remember if IRTF draft had updated it. But anyway, they were pretty close. They might have used different letters, but I chose the ePrint notation. So it's easier for a cryptographer to review. But this public key is the one that's actually used for verification. The compressed one goes to the expanded one. The only difference between them is this one has all of the message generators also. So that's all this is say, go from a public key to the big one, add message generators, then you're done. That's all that really does. Here's kind of the bread and butter. So here's the actual scheme itself, and it says, yep, I'm a short signature scheme here, and then here it just kind of sets all of the stuff. You'll see the same thing in if you go to PS signatures scheme, you'll see the exact same thing. It implements it. So as long as anything implements that trait, then they're hot swappable. You can just pull them out, which is really nice. But otherwise, under the hood, they do their respective cryptographic things. And then the rest of this PR was mostly just having to update it so to account for these changes. So you'll see in here the changes, Stephen, is just adding that generic, which says it can be any short group signature. And that's all the rest of these really are. And so you're going to just see that kind of the rest of this. See, add generic. So it's kind of boring here. So instead of just hard coding it, it's now has to take the generic instead. And away we go. All over the place. See? Add generic. So I don't really want to go through every single one of these.
No, that's fine. I mean, that's the second class. So the first category of change was actually adding the BBS. The second is this, which genericizes the calls to the signatures so you can swap them out.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And then the last is some of the tests you swapped over from being
Yep. Yeah. So I mean, see, here's the generic.
Yeah.
So now you can create a proof on either one. Notice it doesn't matter which one it is. They all just work. It's the exact same. Notice none of the, see, none of the parameters changed. So
Yeah.
under the hood, it's just handling it. So everything else is the same. So now instead of this being hard coded, it says, all right, well, whatever the trait defines as this type, it's that now. And so that's just the rest of it. And then just to show in the tests, I mean, that's what this was to show, okay, I can use BBS. So in some of them I put BBS and some I left it as PS.
Yeah. Okay.
To really do a thing, I would go back and there's a crate
Yeah.
that's really nice called RS test that allows you to pass both and then run the same test twice.
Okay.
Without having to copy and paste it. It basically just does that for you. So I think there was a, oh yeah, I'm in. Okay. This real ID, some other person wrote this test, and so I was just expanding it so to show you it works. So I mean, it does look like a lot of files changed, but 99% of the changes were just adding this generic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. No, I went through it and was shocked at what surprised me even more was that I had just assumed because it was a relatively small PR, and in that I saw all of these things that were just the genericized ones, that I assumed you were using some sort of BBS library, and nope, it's the code's right in there.
Code's
Right
right in
the
there,
docs.
easy for
Yeah.
review. We
Yeah.
can, everything under Knox, which is just the two signatures and
Yeah.
the shared common traits, could be moved to Agora, and I probably should do that in a follow-up soon.
Yeah.
I'm just getting a
Exactly.
lot of meetings this week, but next week I should be a little more calmed down.
Okay.
But anyway, if anybody wants to compare and contrast the eDraft and other ePrints to for BBS, it's all right here. It's pretty simple.
Fascinating.
PS and they should map pretty close to each other. As you can see, there's like both of them have a secret key, both of them have a signature. PS has a very specific verifier, but that wasn't necessary for BBS. They both do different things, but more or less they're the same. This one has message generators, PS does not, but they're pretty close. So
Okay.
hopefully that makes it pretty easy to follow. And then in mapping, I had to obviously, oh, that's just generics. Okay. So other than that, nothing really fancy's going on.
Yeah. All of the features are supported in both.
Yep.
You
just pick one.
Oh, I know what I wanted to ask you. Scroll up to the top of the list.
This
There
list?
is samples. That it says W3C credential format. Okay, what's that? Where did that come from?
No idea. I didn't even
Okay.
remember changing these.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I might have had to. I don't remember how I updated these.
Okay.
That comes from my approach. Like it was last year on the proof of concept. When you run
Oh, right.
the update.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that now. Yes. Okay. Yeah, that's the first work Victor did, Mike, on trying to come up with a way of how we're going to do W3C. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I figured it was some probably automated thing that updated it because I was like, I
Would
don't
that have
remember
been-
touching those.
Was that generated from a test, Victor?
I think so. Yeah, it might be.
Okay.
Oh, you know what I think it is, Stephen? I think it's
Yeah.
it's from like I think this one, it writes an update to it. So
Yeah. And
you'll
all you
notice-
did was record the change because all you see is the date you made the change. Okay.
Yep.
Interesting. Okay, good.
So this is a BBS versus a PS, and you'll notice there's not much of a size difference. In fact, I don't think there is any difference. I think it's just white space.
Yeah. Yeah, there's absolutely no difference. I just wonder if it's not, it didn't even change it. But anyway, that's fine.
But all right.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's it. Before I stop, any other questions related to that? Okay, cool.
Mike, what I'm thinking about is well, we can take this offline, but I think we might want to do a webinar on AnonCreds V2 and where we are with this.
Okay. Yeah.
I could do a you know, introductory session part of it and bounce it between you, and we do a summary of what changed to do that. One other question I had in the in putting the presentation or in putting the agenda together, are there other candidate signature schemes?
The post-quantum ones would be next.
That's what I wondered. So post-quantum would be the one next, and that's most likely. What's the status of where's the PS post-quantum work?
That is being done by Oliver Sanders, and
Yeah.
so I'm just kind of following that work, and
Yeah.
it's doing a little better. Like he's managed to shrink the signatures a little bit.
Yeah.
Like the signatures size, I think, is down to about 2 megabytes from 4. So that's
Yeah.
good, but the key sizes are still enormous. The secret key is 9 megabytes. The public key is 8 megabytes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's equivalent to the Poncholo Sanders post quantum version.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
same thing, just very, very large.
Yeah. Okay.
So that would be next. He told me wait till Eurocrypt after Eurocrypt this year, which is in May, before probably doing anything with it. So we'll see. It's quite gnarly, but you have to remember the code he's writing is, you know, college student grade. And so I told him, well, when you're ready, let me know, and I'll do the professional version. So he was excited about that.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. And this, so it would be an equivalent amount of work. In other words,
Even easier now
aside from the
because
fact-
now I don't. Well, it's even easier now because now I don't have to do the generic.
Yeah,
I just
the
implement the
generic
trait.
done. You
Yep.
basically implement that one folder, and then you just have massively larger files.
Well, it's just I just implement the one trait. Yeah, expand a folder if we wanted to put it in here so that they're all
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
On the flip side, it might be worth keeping it there just for now so people could look at it.
Mhm.
Because that's really the main thing I can see changing. The rest of it is just predicates. So,
Okay.
although if we start doing like fancy snarks or whatever, then we'll probably remove it. But anyway, that's the idea. Is now the generic part's in place. All I have to do is create a new folder in Knox, call it PQ, and implement the same methods, derive the same traits, and we're done. Then it run the same tests, and if it passes, then you know everything's working. It's obviously going to be a lot slower doing post quantum.
Yep. Slower and bigger, but okay. All right. Any other questions from anyone on this work?
Well, I have a question, and sorry, I apologize if my questions will feel naive because of my first joining to the session. Yeah, Mike, when are you planning to move the Knox folder to Agora, or is it? I mean, how are your plans about that?
I could do it probably just in an hour or so. Like I just need to just take the time to do it. It's literally take the folder, create, have the LFDT create me another Agora folder or another Agora repo.
Agora repo.
I'll just call it
Yeah.
short signature, Agora short signatures, and put the same code there, publish it as a crate, and then have this repo just reference that crate. And that's it. Nothing else changes.
Okay. Yeah, and maybe other people have asked before about this, but I really haven't had time to test it. I've been working with AnonCreds V2, your new repository. I've been testing it a lot and I've been inspecting it a lot, but I wonder if it's compatible with Hyperledger in the version 1, like in terms of the. So it's not.
No, it's a completely different thing. I mean, you could backport it if you wanted to, but you'd lose a lot of the functionality, so I don't think it's worth it.
The
So,
intention is, there's a set of to-do issues of where we would like to go with it. That is aspirational as far as, okay, here's how we could make this more generally applicable, but the intention wasn't to be backwards compatible with an AnonCreds V1.
It's a
yeah.
breaking
So
change. Yeah.
yeah, okay, I can see that. But if you wanna use some kind of a blockchain, what is there any integration with any of the existing ones?
So conceptually, it's exactly the same. The same objects exist. So if you're
Yep.
familiar with the AnonCreds, the biggest changes are the schema becomes much more interesting. It has more detail in it. The cred def could be done as a single key because you just need a single key as opposed to all of the elements you need in an AnonCreds V1. And then the revocation scheme is quite different.
And Mohammed, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right.
Yes,
We did
yes.
make the idea of AnonCreds 2 was to make it so going from V1 to V2 was really easy.
Yeah.
That was the way I designed it. So if you understand V1 very easy, V2
Yeah.
should be like a lot very easy to move to. But
Yeah.
going back the other way, I mean, you could, but again, you're going to lose a lot of functionality.
No,
and
actually, I
security.
wasn't. I think you got me wrong. No, I don't want to go back. I want to use
Yeah.
V2, but
Good.
like,
Exactly.
yeah, you know,
Yeah.
I've been investing a lot in learning what you have done in V1, and then I've been investing more lot to learn V2, which very,
Yeah.
you know, I was working on BBS Plus, then I realized that you have implemented PS, then I worked for PS, and then I realized you have implemented BBS, then I moved to BBS.
Exactly.
So it was a long journey. Yeah. And
Excellent.
I don't want to turn back because I have a lot of, you know, if I have time, I'll tell you in future meetings. I have a lot of, you know, plans in my mind. I will share all of them with you. But I mean, I was wondering if I create a credential definition or a schema from V2, can I just write it to Indy and read it from back, like, you know?
So in theory, yes. The challenge is that Indy implements a lot of verification and things like that. So you would need to update the places where you write the objects.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the challenge is Indy, they verify that a schema is a schema, verifies that a cred def is a cred def. So you
That's
would
the
have
challenge.
to have that. So the big difference there is the definition of what a schema looks like, and then getting Indy to say, oh, this is a V2 schema. I'll allow that.
Mm-hmm. But so in real life, if you want someone to use this V2 version in a real life scenario, probably it would somehow have to be compatible with some kind of blockchains, even if it's
Yes.
not. Yeah,
Yep.
if it's Cosmos or something else. That's why, I mean, which one should could be wise to target, I mean, as the shortest path? And I still think it's Indy, while Indy is old, but maybe, I mean, it would be easier to do an experiment.
For the very
Yeah.
first, I would probably do something like look at checked. And so, which is Cosmos, I believe, right? Because they've got a way to write
Yeah, they're Cosmos.
generic resources, because they've got a way to write generic resources, you've got more control over what you write to the blockchain in a generic way. So I would be looking at that one.
I mean, one of my clients is using IPFS, so to write his schemas.
IPFS, you said?
Yeah, he's just using IPFS.
Oh,
So I mean, because all they are is data objects, right? There's no validation and not any of that kind of stuff. There's no proving going on. So
Exactly.
he's just writing data.
Yeah.
And I mean, he tried out ceramic, but ceramic was too slow. Ceramics, if you don't know what that is kind of a easier way to do updates to IPFS stuff if you want by having some common ID across all of your versions, but it's still having issues. So they're in beta, but so he just went straight to IPFS, just runs an IPFS validator. So I mean, I designed AnonCreds V2 to go to anything, whereas V1 was very closely tied to Indy.
Oh yeah.
It really wasn't. We found out it wasn't because we changed it. But anyway, okay,
The code was, not the design.
exactly. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? And we can talk about this again in future meetings. And as I say, I think a webinar seems like a good plan right now. One of the things we do have to explore a bit more is Mike is understanding where it varies from the IETF. So I do want to pursue that one a little bit more.
Sure.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Okay.
vary very much, if at all. I think the only real thing was in the blind signature portion, and that
Okay.
was it. Everything else I largely kept the same. And
Okay.
oh, and the ITF only stores, like, say, the key itself. Whereas, like, to keep things easy, I put a max messages that's stored along with it. Just so it simplifies the API a lot.
Yeah.
Even though BBS technically doesn't really have a max message, I just said, okay, what's the theoretical limit? Because the IATF does say, like, has a optional header that says, oh, how many do you want at max messages? So for this, I was opinionated and just put it in there to say, yeah, you should specify the intent behind this, and that's all. That's really the only difference.
Taking notes. Okay.
Another question?
Yeah. Go for it.
Yeah. Yeah, before you kick me out.
No worries.
Yeah, you know, in V1 there was also this attribute called link secret M0, and I didn't find any here. Is it left to application level, or what is it status?
That's on the to-do list because yes, it's left to the application level. So the blind signatures implements that. So it is implemented, but there's not a magic field that there should be, in my opinion, that does it automatically as inherent in it. So one of the to-dos is to put that back in as a automatic.
Yeah, I mean, if you leave it to application level, it's like putting a requirement to the user of the code to know the sort of the math behind.
Yep. And one of the beauties of AnonCreds is it just did that stuff for you. Same with revocation. I think revocation is also, it's implemented in V2, but it's kind of, oh, use it, don't use it. And it's more at an application level, and you'd want it more as saying, oh, you're using a revocation, then this, and this happens. And you just say, oh, revocation, and then it automatically happens. I think those are the types of things that would have to be evolved for it to be, functionally equivalent to AnonCreds V1. Mike?
Right.
Yeah, one thing I want to add to this V2 library is maybe a credential builder class that says, because the whole idea is that each signature or revocation scheme or proof system, really predicate, can be swappable with something. So what I really want is some nice friendly UX code that says, what signature do you want? Or, take your signature. If you don't care, we'll just pick one for you. What revocation type do you want? If you don't care, we'll just pick one for you. So there's like some opinionated defaults, but if you kind of know a little more about what you want, then you can set those. But otherwise, you shouldn't even be thinking about that stuff. Oh, it'll automatically add in the link secret, automatically add in the right revocation, and all of that stuff for you, and then it just prints it out for you. That's what I think would be really helpful for a lot of developers, so they don't even have to think about this.
Yeah, and that's why I think, AnonCreds V1 was so successful and so easy to use, is because you didn't have to think about any of those things. It just worked. You just learned, oh, that was there. And And I think we need that same thing in AnonCreds v2. All right, you want to ask any more?
Not for now.
Okay, well, we'll have time.
Thank you very much.
Victor, over to you on the revocation project, and feel free to use this as a brainstorming session with Mike.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, basically have 3 issues with the current Windows Server implementation. Do you mind if I share my screen?
Yeah, go for it.
Wrong one. Are you guys seeing the VS Code here?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So Mike, last year you mentioned like one thing. The thing is that the user ID is basically the same as the deletions in the delta. Other like only that the deletion is a hash value of user ID or the other way around, right?
Yes.
So like I'm trying to compare this in Python by replicating the same hash function that is implemented in Rust.
Okay.
However, I don't think this is giving me the same value, even though I'm trying to use the same sum.
All right. Let's look here.
So like this was the original
Mhm.
hash function. And then this is basically what I have.
So the only thing I can think of is go back to the Rust again. Ah, I think I see the difference. So I think the shape code is the same. Where what might be different is line 33 in the Rust right there. So what that is doing is doing a modular reduction. It's treating the 64 bytes as a big unsigned integer and then reducing it to fit in the scalar field. So what you would need to do for the last step is the scalar field in all curves has a modulus. So that's the BLS 12381. I can let me get the reference for you where that is. Let's see. Everything's moved. Trying to find everything. No, that's not it either. I will have it in just a second. I finally got the repo. Okay, here we go. So in Python, what you could do then is, and I'll place this in chat, is you just treat that as 64 bytes as a big number. And then you can do mod, and then on that link that I sent, there's the modulus.
I'm trying to find.
And that's curve defined. That's what the BLS 12381 curve defines. That's the order of the group. And so the reason you do it that way is to eliminate bias in what the value actually lands on.
Okay, I see. Specifically, which are you referring to?
Scroll to the top, it's line 2. Right there. Q equals that hex number. Line 2. Right there.
Oh.
That's your modulus.
So all I need to do is to add a specific modulus at mod Q.
Yep, there's your mod Q.
Okay, cool.
Treat the 64 bytes as one big number and reduce it. That's all that's doing.
Okay, I see. So this probably should solve the problem. What if do we have to do the hash here?
Do we have to do the hash here?
Like,
Well,
like basically, the reason I do the hash here is that, so when you compare a user ID against the revocation list, you only have 3 scenarios. The first one is that the user ID is included in the GUI list. So you just don't update.
Yep.
So that means the user is being revoked. And the second scenario is that it is being revoked and we update the witness, right? I mean, it is not being revoked, and then but there is some update in the
Yep.
accumulator, so we perform the update.
Yep. You have three things can happen when they request an update.
Yes.
One, there is no update to do, so you're done. You return nothing. 2, they've been revoked. You also do nothing. 3, there are changes, therefore apply the update.
Yeah,
That's the only
basically-
time you need to hash.
Yeah, this is the only time I need to hash when the user is in the revocation list, right?
No, you don't even have to do that. You only have to do that when you actually update.
Wait, but
Because the rest you're just comparing a GUID list. That's it.
we don't have a GUI. Like, what do you mean the GUI? So, all right. So, this GUI list comes from the revocation file,
Correct.
and
And the GUID and the user is going to send their GUID to the update server.
yes,
Is that what we're calling it, Stephen? Update server? Witness server? I can't remember.
We're calling it witness server for now, just for the whatever
Okay.
Mike Victor wants to call it. It's all up
The
to
reason
him.
the reason I'm suggesting just send the GUID is because it's smaller. So then the witness server can. The only time they needs to hash it is when there's an actual update. Otherwise, it's just doing a compare string. It's very simple.
Right. So we don't do the compare string anymore.
No, you would do the compare string. Just to see if it's already revoked, then do
I-
nothing. If
yeah.
there's no update, then do nothing.
Yeah.
If there's no update, then you don't, there's not even a string compare. There's only a string compare of was it in the revoked list. If it wasn't, then you can hash it and do your update down below. There's no need to update. There's no need to hash prior.
But then the deletions, isn't the deletions not the same as the GUID list, as the GUID user ID?
Yeah, the deletions is just a GUID list. Yep.
Wait, the deletion is the GUID list.
Yep.
But I think last time you mentioned in the chat, the deletion is a hashed value of the GUID.
No. The hash values are only used when you do the updates. Like when you actually go to cryptography, then you have to hash the values.
So you mean this is also the GUID?
Would it be helpful if I wrote like a wrapper that did this for you?
Yeah,
in
that would
Rust?
would
It
help.
just
Yeah.
says, give me the GUIDs, and you don't have to worry about the conversions.
Okay, yeah, that would help.
Okay, I'll do that.
So this is first question, and the second one is that I'm currently having trouble with deserialize the bytes for membership witness. I think this is the one.
It's just a 48-byte value.
Yeah. I think it's this part. This is you don't have this part implemented before, and I write it myself.
Okay, that's fine.
But I don't think this is working properly. Like, off the top of your mind, do you think this is drastically different than how you should supposed to convert?
No, you take in the bytes, try to, because you assume they're compressed. If it passes, then you're done. Otherwise, there's a failure.
Yeah, like somehow I don't think this is working.
Usually I've seen that be the caused by in Indian this problem. So points are all big Indian format, and so I don't know if you're serializing them differently or calling the same method.
I'm
Like
simply using
when
the
you call 2 bytes, make sure you do the reverse. Okay, so you're calling postcard, that should just call the same method. So I mean, you could call postcard deserialize,
I'm
like
using
from
the
bytes.
So this one is 2 bytes, I think.
2 bytes? No, that's wrong.
But doesn't this one serialize it to the bytes?
Yes, but witnesses are 48 bytes, not 2. If you're only getting 2, there's something wrong.
Where do you see 2?
Oh, well, I thought that's what you said. You said it's
I
2
mean-
bytes.
Like
Or are you saying like it's a method calling 2 bytes?
2 bytes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Not the number 2. Yeah, okay.
Nice.
So like I'm using this to convert into bytes.
Yeah, and then if you're doing the reverse to get it out, then it should work. If you're doing the right methods.
Okay. Now, I guess another thing is with the exchange of the deletion list and the coefficient list. So what I've been doing is just creating a buffer for the entire list, and then just passing in the pointer and the length of the list.
Yeah, that's just passing a string.
Yeah, so like deletion, this is a pointer for the buffer, and then the length, and then once passed into Rust, you can just iterate through.
Except in the Python, it looked like you passed a string, and in Rust, it looks like you're operating on bytes.
Where do you see the string?
And it was in the Python side. See, create string buffer.
So instead it should be byte buffer.
Correct. Because that's a C string. So C string is expected to be null terminated, whereas byte buffers can have anything.
C type set.
So because as soon as you have a 0 in a C string, it terminates. So it might be getting chopped short.
Okay, the C has a byte array.
So C strings are null terminated.
Yeah. Okay.
That might be what's going on. I don't know for sure.
I'll see if this. So byte buffer. Okay, this should be.
Yep. Yeah, those should be byte buffers.
Okay. I think that solves my problem. If it persists, I'll send you. I'll ask you in the chat.
Okay.
Excellent.
Great, thanks.
I don't know if those attending expected us to switch into debugging mode, but there you go.
It's all
All
for
right.
you to help be able to code now.
Yeah. All right, so Mike, you've got a wrapper to write to provide to Victor, and Victor, you've got some cleanups you've got.
Yeah.
And I'm going to send a note to, oh, it says open wallet Zoom. Sorry, it's Bohan. I'm going to send a note to Steven and Mike about setting up a webinar in the future.
Yeah.
So I'll send you guys an
Yeah.
email.
Yeah. I jumped into this. I don't know if there's anything else I wanted to go over. Nope. Any others? Mohammed, did you come up with any more questions for Mike?
I've got one
yes,
for myself.
Not for now, but maybe is it possible to also, can I add my name to the attendees list if I have, or
Yeah, so I put into the chat a while ago. Let's see, I'm not editing, so I could put this into chat and then you can put your
No.
name into the attendee list.
okay.
And then feel free to contact us on Discord if you have any other questions, or as you go forward, let us know.
I will. Yeah, thank you very much.
Awesome. Okay, I heard someone else's voice. Any other comments?
That was
before we
me.
close?
I know
Yeah.
a question for myself. When can I make the UX easy one? And so
Right.
I might just try and do that. I'm not gonna have time this week, but I might have time next week
Okay,
to do that. So you might see that where it goes, create me a credential thing. And then you're not even gonna have to think about numbers or enumerations or dates or anything
That'd
like
be
that.
awesome.
It'll just do a nice friendly one, and then it'll dump out the schema for you. Is that
That
what
would
we
be-
want? The
Yeah.
code def? Okay.
Okay. That's it. Mike, you and I are getting together this afternoon later.
Yep.
Excellent. Good. All right. Well, thanks all. And that's a wrap for this one. Have a delightful Monday or
Bad way
Tuesday.
to start the new year.
Yeah. See ya.
See ya.